Hello everyone, so welcome to my another video. In this video we're going to discuss about the differences between the var, let and the const keywords in JavaScript. So we'll discuss about what are the main differences between these and then when to use what. Okay, so let's get started. First we'll talk about the var, right? So the main difference between these keywords when you define a variable using these keywords, right? So the main difference is uh, in the basically in the scope which they can be accessed, right? So the if you define a variable using a var keyword, so then that variable is scoped to that function. So that is basically a function scope. Okay, but if you define a variable using a let keyword, that is block scoped. So it will be available only within that block of code. It's not available within the entire function, or it's not available globally, but it's scoped within that specific block of code. It's block scoped. Const is also similar to the let. It is also block scoped, but only difference is the const. If you define something as a const, then it cannot be modified. It's defined as a constant. Okay, let's take a look at some examples. So as I said, the var keyword is function scoped. Okay, so let's define a function. So I'm defining a function abc, and then I'm just putting a for loop inside this. So I'm just creating something using var I equals 0, I less than 3, and then I plus plus. So inside that I'm just printing this log as I'm printing out this I. Okay, and from here I'm calling this function. Okay, it's all good. It triggers the function. It prints I from 0, 1, 2, and then it becomes 3, and then the condition fails and it exits the loop. Okay, that all works fine. So when I say the var is a function scope, right? So if I define some variable using the var, so this is available within this entire function. Okay, so let's say if I try to print this outside, console.log of outside, I'm just this outside, and then if I try to print the I here, so what happens is it prints the value. So it's 0, 1, and 2 with this loop, and it became 3, and then it exits the loop, and still I am able to print it outside. So which means if I define something, since the I is defined as a var, it is available within the entire function. Okay, so that is the first important point. Let's say if I define this I as a let keyword, that is, then that will be a block scoped, that will be available within this block of code. Okay, let's change this var to let. So if you see, I can still print within this block. I'm able to access this I, but the moment I go outside of this block, it says uncaught reference error, I is not defined. Okay, so this is basically the simple difference. It's available within this block. If you define something using var, it's available within the entire function. Okay, that's the difference. So let's take another example. So I'm just removing everything. I'm just putting a block of code here, okay, in this open and closing brackets. So I'm defining something like var a equal to, let's say, 40, let b equal to 20. Okay, if I try to print this console.log of a here, it's printing 40. If I print console.log of b, it's printing 20. Let's try to print this outside. So console.log of a, it still prints 40. It is available outside of this block as well, but if you try to print the console.log of b, it says uncaught reference error because the let is available only within this block. It's a block scoped. Similar thing, as I said, the const is again the same thing as let. Only difference is in the let, the const is defined as a constant, so you cannot assign a new value to that variable. Okay, so if I put const, it's going to behave the same. I can access it within this block because the const is block scope, but the moment I go outside of the block, and the b is not accessible. Okay, so let's say next thing I want to talk about is one difference, one more difference between in the var. So as I said, right, so const is like if you try to reassign the value, it will throw error saying like b is the assignment to a constant variable because b is a constant, right? If you change it to let, it will still work. You are able to update the value to 30, and if you try to print a and b, it will print 40, and then 30 is printed, so b is assigned to 30. Okay, so that's the difference between the const and the let. Okay, the constant let it's having the block scope, but the const is defined as a constant, so you cannot update the variable value, but the let we can update it. But the var, the main difference between the var and the let and the const is the var is function scope, so it can be accessed outside of the within the entire function, which is outside of the block also. Okay, so let's look at one more example. Is that I can do like this. Let's say if I define a variable like var a equals 10, I can again define something like a var a equal to 20. I can do this. Okay, so if I try to print this, it will still print 20. I can define the same variable again using, if you're using a var keyword. Okay, but if you use the let b equal to 40, and then if you look at let b equal to 50, if you try to print the console.log of b, it won't work. It says you cannot define the same variable again using the let keyword. If you want to update the value, you can do like this, it will work, but if you try to define again using the let keyword, it won't work. Okay, that's another difference I want to call out. So I hope you understand the basic difference between these keywords. Like var is function scoped, and the let and the const are block scoped, and the difference between let and scope is const is a constant, and b you can and let you can update the value. Okay, and so next thing is when to use which keyword. I would say you can use the const if you don't want to update the data. You can use const, but if your use case is like you have to update the data, then I would say go for the let keyword. So I would say mostly go for the let and const, and only if you want to, because if you define something as a var keyword, it's like wide open. It can be accessed anywhere in the function. So the probability of updating the data using a var keyword, it's like more. So mostly go for the let keyword, and then go for the const. And if you want to update the data, then go for the let. And if you have a scenario like if you think that both let and const won't work, then go for the var. Okay, but give preference for let and the const. So guys, I want to make this video very simple. So I think you now you got the clear idea on the what's the difference between these keywords. So if you learned something from this tutorial, so just make sure that you hit the like button and then provide me a comment, and also to subscribe to my channel and then share this video with your friends. Thank you, and see you in the next video.